All this weekend, I looked for a leader. I looked for anyone to stand up and actually tell the hard truth and risk pissing off their own constituency. Because that's what happens sometimes. And maybe that will happen in the next 20 minutes with you and me. I issue a challenge because, as I told you at the beginning of last week, I'm tired of waiting around for a leader. I will lead, and I challenge you to do the same now.
This is the Glenn Beck program.
The rhetoric that the gunman over the weekend might have heard on Friday's program. There's a great article by Joe Brooks. Social media and liberal websites are convinced the rhetoric from conservative talk show host Glenn Beck, he didn't include, but I would include Sarah Palin, are what caused 22-year-old Gerald Laudner to gun down 19 people, including Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords. While there's no proof that he was a Glenn Beck fan, they claim that the thing Glenn Beck says can and will someday lead someone to snapping and become murderous. He pointed out the things that were heard on Friday's Glenn Beck program. A full hour that talked about courage, faith, truth, compassion, friendship, family, common sense. The 7 wonders that will change your life. Joe Brooks right. He said everyone needs to take a look inside their inner core and ask themselves if they are the person they were meant to be or just the person they've allowed themselves to become. That is the question. And when I say I will lead, I mean I will lead myself and I will lead my family. I will lead by example. And I ask you to do the same. There is a revolution that will change the world, but it is a personal revolution. I am so sick and tired of hearing the rhetoric, hearing the nonsense. Why are we listening to these people? Why? They are only jockeying for position and power. I believe the things that I talk about. I believe the things that I say and that I warn against. I just got an amazing transcript from me in 1998 where, believe it or not, I was talking about Van Jones before Van Jones was anybody. I didn't even know it. One of the researchers went back and found it this weekend. It's unbelievable. I'll share it with you coming up in a little while. I explained at the time, in 1998, who Van Jones was. I believe that people can be evil and people can be good, but it is up to them. No one else. It is up to you, a personal choice. I am issuing a statement, and it is going to go out on the blaze.com. Stu, can you send this out? A personal letter from me, and I will sign it, and I want it to be out on the Blaze by within 2 hours today. I waited all weekend. This is a challenge, an open letter to all those who claim leadership. To Barack Obama. To John Boehner. To Nancy Pelosi. To Michelle Bachmann. To Sarah Palin. To Howard Dean. To Katie Couric, to Brian Williams, to the New York Times, to the Huffington Post. While all Americans are grappling to understand this tragedy, the absolute vacuum of leadership on both sides is staggering. We live in a country that has been struck by John Hinckley and Sirhan Sirhan, Lee Harvey Oswald, Mark David Chapman. One that has been hit by terrorists like Timothy McVeigh or John Muhammad, the D.C. sniper. Nidal Hassan, the Fort Hood killer, and 19 hijackers, all claiming to be freedom fighters. Therefore, you'd think we would understand the difference between madmen and terrorists. But apparently not. There seems to be a game being played in America. All evidence points to the fact that the assailant from this weekend was severely mentally disturbed. His belief system was not rational by any modern political standard. He was an atheist. He believed George W. Bush was responsible for the 9/11 attacks. He feared a global currency, cited the Communist Manifesto as one of his favorite books, and thought the Mars rover landing was faked. These are not opinions of a coherent individual. Far too often we have seen in our schools and in our post offices acts of violence from misfits of society. While we can look for the warning signs, these horrific events will always be with every nation. Violence is a human problem. But everyday Americans can make a personal choice, and I ask for them to make that personal choice today. Do you really, truly believe that Americans from any walk of life can convince themselves that they are freedom fighters and carry out acts of violence? Do you actually believe it? If you do, come with me, because my answer is yes. And if you agree, then you must, with me, take a clear stand. Turning these horrific events into an opportunity for a political attack is a very childish response to a very grown-up problem. This is not about winning a political blame game. Atheists are not to blame. Those who hate George W. Bush are not to blame. Those who don't believe in space travel are not to blame. Jared Lee Longner is to blame. Period. This tragedy should not be used as an opportunity to try and bend reality to retroactively place a madman on the other side of the aisle. It should be time to pray for the victims and their families and the survivors. A time that we can all come together and state that violence is off limits for all sides in a republic. It's time for us to state with a unified passion that we will not accept anyone who threatens or actually carries out any violence. Denouncing violence from all sides, including your own, does not make your movement any less just. To quote Martin Luther King, quote, "But there is something that I must say to my people, who stand on the warm threshold which leads us into the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force." End quote. Today, I echo those words. I challenge all Americans, left and or right, regardless if you're a politician, a pundit, a painter, a priest, a parishioner, a poet, a porn star, to take a stand. And stand with the following. I denounce violence, regardless of ideological motivation. I denounce anyone from the left, the right, or the middle, or whoever believes physical violence is the answer to whatever they feel is wrong with our country. I denounce those who wish to tear down our system and rebuild it in their own image, whatever image that might be. I denounce those from the left, the right, or the middle who call for riots and violence to cause chaos that they see as an opportunity to bring down our system and reconstruct our system. I denounce violent threats and calls for the destruction of our system, regardless of their underlying ideology, whether they come from the Hutari militia or Francis Fox Piven. I hold those responsible for the violence responsible for the violence. I denounce those who attempt to blame political opponents for the acts of madmen. I denounce those from the left, right, or middle that see violence as a viable alternative to our long-established system of change made within the constraints of our constitutional republic. I will stand, and I will stand with anyone who is willing to sign this pledge. Today, I make a personal choice. America, I challenge you, and I put out a warning to any political game player, to all people in the media, to anyone with fame or fortune. You are turning on a paint shaker while putting together the formula and the recipe of nitroglycerin. You think you'll gain power or position. The times have changed. It is time to recognize that times have changed. And you can either be part of the solution or part of the problem. I will continue to turn over tables in a temple. I will continue to say the hard things. I will continue to challenge and probe. I will continue to question with boldness even the very existence of God. But I will do it with honest questioning and let the chips fall where they may. I would just ask for someone to show an inkling of leadership and denounce violence on all sides, and more importantly, denounce the political game playing. Because I'm sorry, but I believe the republic is more valuable than your job, your position, your party. Man's freedom comes above your power. We will show you the words of those actually calling for violence. And we will challenge the press. Since you want to have an open debate, let's have an open debate. Will you once play the words of Francis Fox Piven? Will you once put it into some sort of context that her collapse the system was inspired by the Watts riots? And will you once play the words that she has said recently, where she is calling for people to embrace their anger? I am calling for you to reject your anger. Do we have to watch Star Wars again? Do we have to go and watch every single episode? Because we're living it, gang. And I may be Jar Jar Binks. I don't know. Maybe I'm the annoying character. But the game is as old as man himself. And I choose today, as I have for the last 2 years, I reject the game. And I choose to see it for what it is. The life or death of the Republic. We're running out of time. We have to make this choice before Others just make it for you.